on the News Channel 5 network. This is Open Line.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Open Line. Thank you for being with us on this Monday evening. Great guest tonight, great topic. I hope that we can all explore together the topic of human trafficking. It is an issue in our area and globally, and I just hope that we can all understand it better. I'm Gabrielle Thompson, the CEO and Executive Director for Free for Life International. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
As I said, I just really hope this is a topic that we can all understand better, and that includes me. So we're going to start with the very basics. What is human trafficking?
The most basic way to describe what human trafficking is that it is modern day slavery. And really that breaks down the misconceptions that many believe that slavery was abolished, but truly it is not abolished, and there are more people enslaved present day than ever before in the history of time.
Does it always deal with sex?
No, thank you for asking that. So really the technical form of human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to produce labor or sex. And there are 6 primary types of human trafficking. We of course have sex trafficking, which we all hear about in the United States, but the second most common form of trafficking, which we also have a lot of in the United States, is called labor trafficking, which is the use of labor, slave labor. We have child soldiers as well. We also have involuntary domestic servitude. And those are some other ways that we see trafficking.
And a lot of folks will think of this and think of it as a faraway problem, a problem for third world countries. But it happens right here in our state. It happens in our town of Nashville.
It very much does, and I think that is really my primary intention for being here tonight, is to really educate the audience of Nashville, to really help them recognize that there is trafficking happening in suburbia, in the city, in our state, but also in every other state in the United States and in every other country around the world, and so we really need to be more aware.
So what does it look like? What are most of us not seeing as we go about our day-to-day lives when it comes to human trafficking?
I think the first step is really recognizing that it's happening at a very rapid pace, and it is increasing on a day-to-day basis. So what we've found in working in anti-human trafficking is that every single year the cases of people actually being caught in human trafficking are increases, the numbers of people being trafficked are increasing, and to really recognize that. So for example, in the United States, the data has come out that there is estimated to be about 400,000 people that are enslaved currently within our country, but within Nashville, that's something we're still looking at, but it's something that is very much increased with the popularity of our city, with the success of our sports teams, with the growth of having conventions and conferences here, with our interstate systems that we can be in many different states within a few hours time. We have become a hub for human trafficking, as well as the fact that people have money here, and people with money purchase sex.
I was just told last week by a trooper who said, believe it or not, Nashville is becoming one of the hotbeds for prostitution, and it's not always the prostitute you think standing on the street corner. These are happening in businesses behind closed doors. Does that fall under the umbrella of human trafficking?
Absolutely, and I think that unfortunately people think that it looks like prostitution, when it really does not look like prostitution. And a lot of times there is someone behind the the way that we look at prostitution, that there's always someone behind that woman that is a pimp, that is trafficking them, that is forcing them to do that. But I think what is even worse is when we look at the average age of an individual being trafficked, it's becoming younger. Now the average age is pushing to even 9 years old. And so it's children, and we've seen trafficking inside of suburbia, trafficking outside of homes that actually are run like a brothel in a home. Of course in hotels, we see it in the trucking industry a lot, where girls are being transported across the United States via semi-trucks. And so it's really important that we open our eyes and we trust ourselves to say, this doesn't look right, and to really take a moment to identify if there's anything that may look suspicious.
So tell me how a girl as young as 9 becomes trafficked.
Thank you for asking that. First, I want to lay out a little bit of Well, first I want to say that what really pushes anyone into trafficking, whether it be a man or a woman or a child, is a vulnerability. And the vulnerability in the United States looks different than the vulnerability internationally. Primarily what we see as a vulnerability internationally is going to be poverty. But the vulnerability that we see here in the United States is emotional. So it's young girls that may have a disoriented family, that may not have a place where they feel loved and received and are not feeling affirmed and cared for. It could also come from a very healthy family that is full of love, but they've fallen into the wrong hands. I think the reason particularly why it's that age group, so it's about 9 to 14, being a teenager is very challenging.
We all understand that. We have all been there.
And so if you are searching for something, like someone telling you that you're beautiful and that you're loved, and maybe you search in the wrong places, or a guy at the mall comes and approaches you and tells you that you're beautiful. Human trafficking is done through luring and manipulation. It is not done through being taken.
You know, I think of all the stories that we do on the nightly news, and it's at least once a week, if not more, of families looking for young teens who have run away. And usually they say they have, you know, the police say they've met somebody online and they've gone to meet them, and it's usually an older person, an older man, and that can be the very makeup for being trafficked.
Absolutely. And that's one thing to educate parents that are listening right now, is that being aware of what your children are looking at. Apps, you know, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, Snapchat are being ways that traffickers are luring children. And so we need to be more aware of that as we are educating families and as we're trying to protect the youth around in our country and in our state.
And they're using those apps to prey on those vulnerabilities, as you said, of telling that young girl who's full of hormones and maybe not feeling great about herself and looking for someone to love her, how beautiful it is, how wanted she is. She's getting to hear those things from somebody else.
Yes.
And it can just be that lure that gets her away.
It's a grooming process, and traffickers are very well skilled at it. And so for a lot of young women, they actually think that the trafficker is their boyfriend. And oftentimes in the first time that a trafficker may be trafficking a woman, as far as soliciting her for sex, they'll say, you know, come on, honey, this is just one time. I just need to make some extra money. Remember, I love you. There's different types of traffickers that will use different types of manipulation. And
then I think people also have the question of when somebody's lured away and they figure out, oh no, this is dangerous, why don't they just turn around and go home? It's not that easy.
No, it's not. And I think truly, if people were able to communicate with someone that was a survivor of human trafficking and to really understand the incredible psychological trauma that happens prior to them actually even being fully trafficked, as far as that grooming manipulation stage, there is so much fear. I mean, so much fear. We cannot even imagine what these women face. They are told, I will kill your family, I will kill everyone you know, I will torture you. I mean, it is not that simple. And so just for all of the viewers to recognize that it is not as easy as just leaving. That is why organizations like Free for Life International exist, to be able to serve those people, to help them get out of trafficking.
To come in and fill those needs that the trafficker was taking care of, because if a girl leaves or a young woman leaves or a young man leaves, they are dependent on that trafficker for food, clothing, even hygiene products. I mean, just things to keep them going. These traffickers will get them hooked on drugs so that they have to come to them for their fix. It's so very scary.
Absolutely. And so, and it really takes a well-trained team, and it has to be done in a very particular way, how women and girls are rescued. And so that's the other thing as well, is that, you know, once someone is in trafficking, there needs to be an organization and law enforcement that can be a part of that rescue process.
So tell me about Free for Life International. What do you guys do? What is the scope of it?
Thank you for asking. So we are an international organization. We work in 5 different countries. Our hub is here in Nashville, which we are very passionate about our community, but we work in a variety of ways. We focus on the full holistic approach of the trafficking cycle. So we look at prevention of those that are the most at risk. And I want to mention, you mentioned runaways. Runaways, homeless individuals, and LGBTQ youth are the most at risk here in our country. So we focus on prevention of the most at risk, including including orphans on a global scale, really helping bring our vision, which is freedom for all, to life. We also do our rescue initiatives. Those primarily happen internationally. To date, we have rescued 1,300 women and girls from trafficking. Then we also do restoration, true healing, which is long-term. We put no time limit on the women that we serve. We've had 3 shelters around the globe, and currently our shelter is in Thailand. And then we do skills training, which really helps empower survivors to fulfill their dreams. We are supporting multiple survivors here in the United States, and it really empowers them to say, what do I want to be, you know, now that I'm no longer a part of this? And we allow them to dream.
They can take care of themselves, giving them a means to do that, so they don't have to rely on anybody else. They can do it themselves. What kind of help do you need from the community to make this happen here and globally? I
would say the first step is starting conversations, you know, bringing this up within our communities, recognizing first of all within yourself, but then spreading it to others, that we cannot allow slavery to be happening in our world any longer, and we must stop it. That takes the entire community coming together. The second step is rallying around organizations like Free for Life International and other anti-trafficking organizations to actually come beside them. We cannot do our work without the community. We cannot run our organizations without the support of everyone like those that are watching. And so to whether that be donations or volunteering or just spreading the word, we need that effort, but also opening everyone else's eyes within the community to really watch and be aware. There's an organization called Polaris, and they run the National Human Trafficking Hotline number. Well, what I call concerned citizens, which is anyone listening right now, that is actually how many trafficking survivors have been rescued, because people saw things that were very suspicious, called the hotline, and that's how they were rescued. So I want to empower everyone watching to know that they actually can make that difference.
And what are those things that should send a light bulb up, those suspicious things that people see and say, uh-oh, I should call the hotline?
Absolutely. So first of all, when someone is being trafficked, they're incredibly isolated. They're not allowed to have communication with anyone else. So if you see an individual that does not have a cell phone, that is looking very fearful, looking very isolated, I do want to mention that what is challenging about sharing red flags is that there's only so many red flags you can actually see with your eyes without having a conversation with someone being trafficked. But we do not necessarily recommend people try to have a conversation with someone they think are being trafficked, more than just to observe and call the trafficking hotline. So as I said, they're isolated, they're fearful. We have an intuition, each of us. Trust it. If you see something that is suspicious, like you're at a bar and you see a man in his 50s with a girl that looks like she's 17 years old, if that makes you feel uncomfortable, trust that. Go with that. There's power to our intuitions, but also realizing that there's such a significant level of abuse. So looking at, there's obscure ways that traffickers will abuse individuals. So really unique types of bruisings, branding, for example. So traffickers will always brand with a level of ownership. So you might, and then the neck is a very common place. So it might say the trafficker's name on a woman's neck, dollar signs, crowns. You might see that also on her wrists, on her arms, places that are visible to where the public and other traffickers know that girl is already being owned by a trafficker.
Wow, I had no idea. I had no idea. We're going to continue this conversation, and I would love for you to be a part of it. That is what Open Line is about. If you have questions or comments, go ahead and give us a call. The number is at the bottom of the screen at 615-737+. We're coming right back.